Alright, so last night I watched To Live and Die in LA by William Friedkin with Willem Dafoe as that evil savant genius counterfeiter artist who burns all of his paintings, and there's this giant car chase through downtown Los Angeles. Have any of you guys seen that movie? It's terrible in the best way. To Live and Die in LA is a very bad movie. And it's a very great film. It's just great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm Cliff Sargent, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews, and I'm still not awake. I'm also your host, Clifford Lee Sargent, and today is just an interview with me. Today I'm just going to answer some questions from a fellow from Gujarat, India, named Aaroh Palkar. Thanks for getting in touch. Really appreciate the interest, man. He has a blog over there, and you can check it out in the link below. And he just wanted to know some stuff about me, so here I am. So let's get started. Can you please tell the viewers / readers a little bit about yourself? I was born in Norman, Oklahoma. My parents met in a church, apparently. Go figure. Dusty little town in Oklahoma. I have no real recollection of it. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I studied film in Portland, Oregon. Portland was always kind of the city for me. I spent some time in Astoria, Oregon, too, which had a tremendous impact on me. I loved that town very much. I still love it. It's a beautiful place. If you could ever make it up there, Astoria, Oregon. But around there and around Portland. So, fog, rain, coffee, trees, mountains, ocean, black metal. I've been reading since memory serves me. Right now I live in Los Angeles, and I've been working on this project, this channel, for about 18 months. Met a lot of great individuals from all over the world, gotten some great feedback, been recognized in public twice, only once did the person comment on it, and have generally had a pretty damn good time and have no plans of stopping. What initiated you into reviewing books? Better Than Food was born out of a really, really dark period in my life. I was taking care of my dad while he was passing away from stage 4 lung cancer, as some of you know. So I was living out of town in the middle of nowhere and staying with him at his house, and also at the same time I was working on this very, 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 very big project, which continues to this day, which I've been working on behind the scenes, and I was unable to do any sort of tactile work other than, the basic, you pick up the phone and send emails and that kind of thing. I wasn't really able to move and shake. I wasn't able to get anything going, or at least it didn't feel like it, All I could do was sort of from behind a laptop. My options were very limited. So I got very frustrated, and of course I've been reading literature for a long, long time, so it's what I did. That was my hobby. It went on like this for over a year, and I was, and still am a fan of The Needle Drop with Anthony Fantano, and was so impressed by this bedroom project that could actually have this excellent impact on people's lives all over the world. And wouldn't that be interesting if I could do that, but with literature? I liked The Needle Drop pre-Death Grips. Pre-Death Grips. For all y'all. I'm dating myself now. It amazed me that you could do something that had that kind of creative control that was very, very minimal, but very effective. Kind of like the updated version of Glenn O'Brien's TV Party. What I realized that nobody was doing, other than maybe Greg Sadler, God bless the man, was doing just what I love to do and was interested in doing. Reading very difficult literature, and not only reading it or saying you've read it by looking at each page in the book, but actually making a solid attempt to understand a good portion, if not all of it. So what you can see on this channel over the course of time is just me not only learning how to review a book, I still don't know, I have no idea, but learning how to get as much as possible from the material itself. And hopefully that translates, and hopefully that inspires you to put forth a considerable effort, you know. That really makes it worth your time. It's gonna be what makes the whole process worth it, not just skimming the pages. It's kind of just like moving on. It's kind of empty and dead, and it's this mind-numbing task. Your time is better spent lifting weights or talking to women or men, whatever. What is your thought process while reviewing a book? Well, I couldn't analyze my thought process while I'm in the middle of reviewing it because, you know, I think Werner Herzog said that, like, staring at the camera is, like, basically like staring into the eyes of death in the black abyss. And as I'm looking at you guys out there right now, that's kind of what it's like. I mean, it's kind of absurd, really, you know? It's just like looking at this because you're not really conscious of, like, what you're doing even now when I'm trying to analyze what I'm doing when I'm normally doing this. I have no idea. You kind of I think Jean Cocteau said, as soon as you're aware of the audience, or as soon as you're, like, doing it for the audience, then it's like spectacle, which for me is probably true to some point, but I don't know what the process is that goes through all the, you know, I don't know what the exact synapses going through my mind are doing when I'm reviewing a book. It's fun to just kind of, like, go like this and just blather, though, you know, to kind of just vocally digest stuff or externally digest stuff. That's kind of a weird thing. But I can tell you certainly the process leading up to that. You know, I read the hell out of the book, and I have to be very, very picky with what I read, because this is not like watching a film or listening to an album, for example. It's much longer. And it is much more difficult. It is. You are deciphering little fucking words on a page. Deciphering these little words and correlating them to your past experiences, your past knowledge, your current knowledge, you know, whatever. Whoever you are right now, everything that you are up to this point, it's not acting on you. You are interpreting it, right? That's the thing. It's not being given to you at all. You are giving it to yourself. It's fucking work, which is why I love it, you know? Very much like lifting weights. Reading difficult books, very much like lifting weights, and just as fucking gratifying. Different way, though. That will not get you laid. But yeah, so read the hell out of the book, dog ear all the pages, highlight whatever. I love, personally, you know, like talking that fucking paper versus Kindle video, I love doing it on the computer because you can highlight everything. But, you know, of course, you know, then your back gets tight and you're, like, tired of looking at the screen. There's something very gratifying about looking at physical objects rather than the screen. There just is. Deal with it. But yeah, I read the hell out of the book. I write all my reviews. I didn't actually, this is like the only question I didn't write anything to, because I'm just going to go meh, 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 meh. But usually I write everything out beforehand. I try to isolate the topics of the book that I want to discuss, or the big main flesh of the ideas behind the novel. Usually they fall into the categories death, existence, life, love, sex, etc. It's all part of the same shit. It's just variations on a theme. Everything is a copy of a copy, you know. Or a parody of a parody, as George would say, which is great. I love George. And I try and, you know, it's sort of like creating an argument, right? You have this claim, you have the warrant, and then you have the impact. You have the claim, this idea. You have the warrant, you have the writers, you know, their reasons illuminated in the book for why they think this is true, their opinion or whatever, which is eventually created to this argument. And then you have the impact, why it's important, why this, why that, blah, 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 blah. You know, some of the greatest books have just been giant arguments for me. These narratives, these long, sprawling narratives, they're just like this mixture of history and argument. Anyways, all of it culminating from this very lived, very real personal experience, which you can immediately feel is authentic or not when you begin reading the novel. Or maybe I give it 100 pages, give or take. But that's my process for creating a book review. And then the rest of this, I just kind of like roll off the cuff, because I think it's really boring if somebody's like, you know, like just stating the facts and facing you square on the entire time, and this is this and that is that, and what you should really do is the blah, 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 blah. No. Yeah, it's like I like to act like you and me are having a drink of whatever, of coffee, of wine, of mint tea, which I really want right now. I'm gonna make a fucking thing of Moroccan mint tea. Or whiskey. I don't know. Like we're smoking a cigar and having a scotch. That's my process for writing the review. And then, you know, but it's just like this interview, you know, like I write out the answers, I write out all the stuff, and then I like throw it up there and I'm reading off of it kind of in between intermittently, but it's like a script at some certain point, you know, like a film script. You write it, and as soon as you get on set, you let it go, man, because it's going to turn into whatever it's going to turn into. Now you're in real life. Now it's just you and me. So, hope that answers your question. A book or books which have greatly impacted you. You know, Stephen King. I gotta say, Stephen King, when I was like 10, 11, or 12, I was reading, you know, Cujo and Christine, and I remember The Long Walk, which I think might have been his first very, very disturbing book. Great book. Walking. Just the pain and drudgery. I wonder if that was just, you know, his metaphor for writing a novel, The Long Walk. It was great. That was a magnificent book. But I also remember having a competition. I read The Shining, too, which was great. But I remember having a competition with my 6th grade teacher, whose name I have forgotten. And she was encouraging this. But we were having a race to see who could finish it first. And that is a 1,000, maybe 11 or 1,200 page book with some serious psychosexual, drug-induced, you know, background. I mean, the last maybe 1/6 of that book, I think, was just so outrageously strange, outrageously weird for, you know, for anything, for a horror novel. I had to read that again. But that had a huge impact on me. I think, yeah, I probably more than anybody else, it was Stephen King. Because it was sort of like forbidden. You knew you were being precocious by reading it at that age, and you were at least I was making a tremendous effort to really try and understand, try to scare the shit out of myself, you know, psychologically fuck myself up. Which has always been the case. I mean, it's just, that theme always continued. It's just like pushing the limits of what, you know, what you can take or what you can handle or what you can understand and how to deal with that information. But then, you know, that's, when I think about it, none of that has ever really changed. It's the same thing. So, yeah. But the book with the most enormous impact on me on my entire life would definitely be Story of the Eye by Georges Bataille. Yep, that's the one. Favorite writers? Yeah, Georges Bataille. Definitely. And Yukio Mishima. Bataille and Mishima. Do I think the current generation is less into reading? If yes, then what do you think are the reasons for that? Every problem with our generation can be attributed to the idea that comfort is more fashionable and much more easily attained than strength. Intellectually and physically. It's always been that way. What are you going to do? But I'll tell you something. Your generation has enough of an influence on you. You don't need any more excuses from them for your behavior. You, wonderfully enough, have the ability to not be like your generation. To not be like it in the ways that you don't find, that you don't respect, or you don't admire. Whatever generation, whichever one you come from, you don't have to internalize the things that they do. That's the beautiful thing about this. You can view things differently. You can internalize things your own way. You should. You ought to think critically, to view discomfort as a worthy challenge, and to view that as an opportunity, and to apply that to every single mode of your life. What are the reasons for them not reading? Don't know. Don't care. The same reasons why they're fat, bored, and celibate. Yeah. What are your views on books being adapted into movies, and what book to movie, I cut that off accidentally, but I think it was, what book to movie adaptation did I think did it justice or appreciate, whatever. Tilda Swinton once said, Tilda Swinton, actress I admire very much, and I'm paraphrasing. She said this from an interview. She said, all books that are deemed impossible to adapt into films thus should be attempted, simply on that merit alone. Everything that everybody says is impossible to adapt should absolutely be attempted, and I think she's absolutely right. The idea of being so precious with novels. Oh, you're gonna break the integrity of the poor little novel. There are plenty of films I enjoy more than the books. Those in the immediate, well, let's think. Just look at the golden era of film in the 70s. You have A Clockwork Orange, Jaws, The Shining, Moving Forward, Fight Club, American Psycho. Sure, absolutely, great movies. The book is often not as good as the film. That might not be true, but I'll put it for you this way. I've never had a book ruined for me because of a film adaptation. That's impossible. Not sure why, if it's some sort of chicken or the egg thing, like that has like the imprint, or it's more respected, or I don't know. It's more sacred or something. Couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But personally, for me, that's always been the case. I've never had a book ruined because of the film adaptation, ever. Even if it's a terrible adaptation, I was like, because you just say, oh, the book is so much better. You still have that respect for it. Which is great. That's cool that you can't really ruin it that way. I mean, the whole thing about doing justice and keeping the book's integrity, fuck all that nonsense. That's ridiculous. That's what you're trying to push, the ideas that the book elucidated or brought out or conjured into a different medium, and trying to push them further. If we're just gonna let everything collect dust like some sort of weird relic in a church, then everything's gonna just die. So yeah, pushing stuff further. That's what I'm interested in. This was a good one. This was a good cup of coffee. Perfect grind to drip ratio. You can look it's mine. Tastes kind of like blueberries. It's a natural, which is interesting because I learned from somebody down the street over at Verve, Jason over at Verve. He told me naturals, that it's actually coming from a mold. It tastes, when you have a natural coffee bean or blend or whatever, I don't know what the fuck it is. This is all coffee. I don't know shit, and none of this really matters anyways. It's all coffee. But they say it's interesting because there was this one pour over I had up in Portland at case study on Alberta, which tasted so heavily of blueberries it was fucking crazy. It just immediately when it hit you, blueberries. It was hot, but it was delicious. I loved it. And I learned later it's that's actually because of the natural mold on top of it that it gets that flavor. I was like, oh, okay. Kind of like this, reminded me of cheese or the noble rot of grapes and wine. I love all that shit. I think that stuff's fascinating. I like to read about wine more than I like to drink it. Do you feel yourself being in competition with other book reviewers on YouTube? For attention or money? I wasn't aware that there were any until they started talking about me. Not to me. About me. Other people then let me know that they were talking about me. And they were all saying very nice things. They're all a group of very nice people for the most part. I realized the other day that I really don't have any idea what's going on the internet about me. I have no clue. There was like a whole Reddit. I don't know what Reddit is. There was a whole thread on me, and like I just realized the other day that somebody had posted the Neuromancer William Gibson review, and he had retweeted it like 7 months ago or like a year ago or something, and I had no idea. You know, it kind of like made my morning. I just now find out about all this shit that's been happening forever. It doesn't really matter to me. I didn't even know there was a reviewer community of books on YouTube. From what I can tell, many of them really don't read difficult books. That's fine. They can do what they like. I'm going to be over here and do my thing. I don't feel like competition with anybody. And that's great. I feel kind of off doing my own thing. I'm not friends with any of them. We don't go hang out and read together. We don't go talk about books. I'll tell you something. Booktuber, though, which is a term I only heard of after starting this thing, maybe 6 months ago, but that sounds like a hideous, fucked up medical condition. I just got back from the doctor. It's terrible. It's terrible. Ah, what you got, Charlie? Oh, it's a booktuber. Oh, real nasty stuff. Booktuber. I think that might be the ugliest word I've ever heard. What are you currently reading, and what is the next book you are going to review? I'm not going to spoil it. However, if you donate $20 on Patreon to the show, I will let you know in advance what the next thing I'm going to read shall be. And you can follow along and kind of compare and contrast, so you'll have your own opinion about it, your own formed opinion about what you've read, and then you can see what I thought, and then we can have a dialogue, and you can leave some nice intellectual comments. We can all get satisfied. I'm also going to create more incentives for Patreon donors soon, so stay tuned on that. Check back soon, please. Thank you. 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 Thank you to all the Patreon donors who have already supported the show. I mean, really. I should just take this opportunity to just say that. Sincerely, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But what I'm currently reading... Okay, fine, I'll give it to you. All right. I'm currently reading Poe. Currently reading Edgar Allan Poe. But it's so big. It's so big and heavy that I'm not even going to come carry it over here to show you, because it's just it's a beast of a book. It's been sitting on the shelf for forever. I've read, plenty of Poe. I grew up... Cask of Amontillado was one of my favorites, and of course The Raven and all that jazz. But I really wanted to just go through and work through all the collected fictions. I just wanted to read the whole damn thing. And that guy, dude. Apart from reading and reviewing books, what else do you like to do? I'm secretly a filmmaker, and as some of you know, I've been working on a very large project for years, which I will discuss and talk about further when it actually looks like it's going to happen. I have this kind of superstitious bad juju thing about letting stuff on too soon, because then you talk about something and then it just never happens. It's always the case. And I always fuck it up too, so I have to be extra careful with this one, because I really want this to happen. I go to secret warehouse techno shows. A highlight was going to Berlin and my girlfriend and I getting into Berghain twice. If you don't know what Berghain is, that is it's the most incredible place on earth. You ought to just look it up. It's a good time. We saw Tommy 4/7 there, which was a fucking unreal show. I think that was the best, except when I saw Death Grips in a small theater, the Star Theater in downtown Portland one rainy night, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Very small show. It was up right in front center stage with MC Ride propping himself up on my solar plexus. Pretty good time. I lift weights and listen to the Misfits. I'm actually very interested in fitness. Don't drink very much. Don't go out that much. Yeah. Dancing, reading, lifting weights. Beating the guitar from time to time. Believe it or not, I also write. Going back to where I'm from and where I grew up and all that jazz, when I was in Astoria, Oregon, I was working at this community radio station called KMUN, which I think is actually still going. It's out of this old kind of bungalow-style house in town, and it was so cool because it's just this non-profit community radio station. And a couple of things happened. I was growing up in the middle of nowhere near Deep River, Washington, and my mom was working at a post office, a very small post office, because not many people out there. Very, very, very rural. And in walks this dude one day who's like 7 feet tall. He's like 6'9", 7 feet tall. My mom recognizes him, and it's Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, the bass player. And Nirvana's been done for a long time, but I'm 15, 16, and I'm that's all new to me, and I'm like a huge Nirvana fan. Still love Nirvana, And she introduces me to him. He's like driving this sea green beat up 4x4 around this small town in Washington, and we shake hands and we talk about metal, because I'm into metal, and he was into metal, probably still is. But we were talking about Celtic Frost. He's talking, and at that time I'm listening to stuff like Bathory. I hadn't heard Celtic Frost yet, but so I find out he's working at this radio station doing this bi-monthly show where he's just literally, I sit in on a session with him, and he's just hauling in these milk crates full of vinyl with his beautiful fashion designer girlfriend, who just kind of like sits and stares down everybody in the room in the studio, and I'm just kind of like sitting there in my leather jacket with my hair down to my shoulders in awe as this man who was in one of the greatest rock bands arguably of all time is dressed in this giant crimson Renaissance shirt with the frilly cuffs and the neck, and serenades the entire studio full of just people kind of kicking it and hanging around to Tiny Tim's Tiptoe Through the Tulips. And that made a big impression on me, because then I started my own radio show there because he kind of pushed it. He also gave me a nickname. He called me DJ Precipice. I can't make that shit up. He wanted to play like Norwegian black metal, because I was listening to like Burzum and Mayhem and all this fucking crazy shit at the time, and he was or like hardcore punk rock and like all any kind of hardcore stuff from the 80s, and the radio director at the station was like, "Is there really an audience for this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, give him his own show." And so twice a month at midnight, I would go in there on Friday nights, and I would play stuff from my show, which I called the Witching Hour, which was this sort of just curated collection of all of these very, very hard. I'm pretty sure the levels were peaking the entire time. I had no clue what I'm doing. It was very funny because I had this kind of like soft voice. It's like, and now we're going to hear from this very rare, obscure Norwegian black metal band. And it was so fucking funny. And gradually, you could actually like see my music taste evolve too, because it started incorporating stuff like that was much more experimental and or post-punk, like because then I heard the Birthday Party. And the Birthday Party changed everything. I heard that live album from the 80s, and that was just like I think the Birthday Party was the biggest musical revelation of my early 20s. Yeah, that was huge. Eventually I stopped and moved away, and that was that. Are you available on any social networking sites? If you, if yes, can you please state it for the audience who would like to connect with you there? Again, Patreon. Twitter, Instagram too. Facebook, I only add people who I've touched physically. And like. I should take this opportunity to say though, if you are an artist or a graphic designer, I would love to do a collaboration if it works out. And you should definitely get in touch. Photographers, creative folks, if you think our aesthetic kind of can line up and some sort of brilliant work can be done, then yeah, hit me up. Open to that. Well, if you guys made it this long, thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you all are doing well. Subscribe, please. Some stuff coming up in this next week. Lots of good stuff to come up. Oh, man. Oh, there's great books coming. So much good stuff coming. So much stuff, I can't help but kick the camera. Well, the homeless people are waking up and screaming and shouting, so that means it's time for my second cup of coffee, and I've got to go get the day started. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys are all doing very well. Life is too short to read bullshit. I'll talk to you this next week. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. Ciao.